I'll just
Oh,
wait.
Jane with the purple hair. I
Okay. So Jane, just you can let me know when you're recording. Does that mean that I should stop recording what I've done?
No, it doesn't make any difference. We can both record it.
Okay. Okay, that's great. I'll basically, what I did is I said today is the 22nd of Sivan, 5780, and the 14th of June, 2020. And I said a few things about where we're heading, and that's okay. I won't need to repeat that right now. And so just to start with our chant, Ana Avda, Kuchabrichu, get this up here. Hopefully, yeah, good. And just do a screen share so you can see the words are so complicated that it's helpful to have. Ana, Avda Tekudesha Berichu. Ana, Avda Tekudesha Berichu. Ana, Avda Tekudesha Berichu. Ana, Avda Tekudesha Berichu. Manana Avda Dekudesha Berichu. Anana Avda Dekudesha Berichu. Ana Avda Dekudesha Berichu. Ana Avda Dekudesha Berichu L'Shem Yekud Kuchabrichu Shchenta Berechilu Urechimu for the sake of unifying the broken parts of our world and of the divine, and awe and love and love and awe. Le'achet Shem Yudei Bevav B'Yechud HaShalim B'Shem Kol Yisrael Hineni Mukhan Umzuman Lekayem Mitzvat Aseh Shel Talmud Torah. Baruch atah vaya Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. I'm saying amen. I didn't hear the amen because you probably said it on mute. And good. So I thought that I know I didn't give you a lot of time to look at the Malila text, and we can continue talking about it next time in greater depth. But I thought there was some really wonderful material there that that would really pave the way for virtually anything that we have studied. This is the chapter that has to do with general characteristics of Zoharic mystical experience. And just I'll before I open it up, I'll just mention a couple of things. So the way in which she kind of situates Zoharic mysticism and maybe compares it, I would say, distinguishes it from maybe Abu Lafian mystical tradition, which she follows Moshe Idel in saying that Abu Lafian tradition is maybe a hard kind, a more comprehensive form of mystical union. To use an Indian kind of distinction, the distinction between tasting intensely the sugar versus becoming the sugar. And clearly in Abulafian mystical tradition, there is a notion of complete unity, identification between the self and the divine. Hu v'hu davar echad bilti nifrad, that both the divine source, the cosmic stream of life, and the individual intellect, when it is unsealed, and can merge with the cosmic stream of life, so that they are one and indistinguishable. Davar echad bilti nifrad. And there is an ecstatic experience that is seen as enduring for at least for a bit, of often likened to the experience of being anointed in oil and light at one and the same time, a kind of a very liquid, deliquescent kind of experience. And Edel, for example, talks much more about the theurgic thrust of Zoharic Kabbalah. By that, he means the deep desire of the Zohar's protagonist to rectify the divine world. At the same time as that happens, Melila wants to say that really does bring about a kind of soft ecstatic experience, which is more subtle in nature. There is a kind of touching of human consciousness, of the holy, of the divine holy. There is a moment in the mystical wave of this kind of intermingling between the adept and the adept's consciousness and the divine. But it is for the purpose of not only of rectifying the divine, but also even that is the purpose is to draw down blessing for the benefits of all reality. We're at were we speaking in Buddhist language for all sentient beings, right? And so yeah, I think that I wanted to say that. And so she speaks about a mystical wave, right? Where there is a kind of preparation, a kind of acceleration of expanded and loosened consciousness, a kind of peak of the experience that she likens to Bergson's Doré, the experience of the deep self, intuitive in nature, an altered and deepened experience of time. But there is also, following that kind of peak, and this might be part of the Doré itself, of course, a kind of quieting and ultimately a sealing. That sealing, SEALING, that follows the, I guess you would say, the ceiling, CEILING, or the peak, at least I wouldn't call it the ceiling, we've seen that with either the smelling of the rose at the end, or more likely the smelling of the apple, or some kind of reflection of how fortunate we were to have experienced this. Ashrei Adam shekachalo. And if only I had lived to have this experience, a kind of reflection, a kind of a narrative sealing of the experience itself. And Melila talks about the way that the peak of the experience in many ways is like the kiss. That's one of the important images that's used, or actions that's used, and except for a moment, I would say, or a fleeting moment, the protagonists don't disappear into the divine light. They don't drown and utterly dissolve in the divine river, Yotzim Eden, that flows from Eden, but they bathe and soak. Okay, that's the image there, and even expound creatively as they are soaking. So she uses the image. This is, I think, drawn from Levi Brul, a French Jewish, as it so happens, anthropologist who talks about participation mystique, or the notion of an experience of communion, participation, rather than unification. I don't want to push that too much. I think that's by and large right, though Malila does say that there are moments of these intermingling and unification. It's the Venn diagram, the overlapping part, which is part of the love act in its entirety. Okay, any questions so far before I go on a little bit more? And I know some of you might have read this in depth and want to jump in. Yeah, so Linda Leah, do you want to jump in yet, or you want to wait till I go through this a little bit?
I just wanted to say that I was so struck by the Bergson quotes that I looked him up in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
Right.
And that later I might want to talk about that, but I'd like to hear your complete presentation.
Yeah, very interesting. He comes from his ancestors were very important in the Hasidic world, and actually in helping to fund the Hasidic world.
I really figured that out without reading it anywhere, because his writing is, well, anyway,
I don't know if
I just want to save some space for that.
Yeah, oh great. I don't know if that was his grandmother or someone, but who was like really influential in that kind of funding of Hasidic communities, among other things. Yes, that's totally fascinating. And and
so can I just ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Just for clarity, because when I was reading this, it all made sense to me. I mean, the Abulafi and so many of those practices are so concentrated, and you get very high. And and my sense is, when I looked at like who are the chevra in the circle, so
of whom
on the Zoharic
Kabbalah,
that the chevra that are the companions. Right. And one of them is Joseph
Gikatilia.
Yes, and you do that. You do his meditation with us.
Yeah, he started out as an Abulafian Kabbalist, and then he
shifted. And it's like there's a very different, when you do Abulafia, it's very concentrated. And then I was actually comparing the experience from when doing the Yud He Vav He breathing. It's different. There's a different. And I just that notion, it was an interesting, I had to really think about that notion that the companions don't, they maintain the duality while they're in non-duality. So they were doing both.
That you're bilocating. You're both.
Yes.
You're with each other, and you're in the social circle, and at the same time you have entered into another realm of being. And my guess is that at some point in the process, you can very easily flow in another you bathe so deeply in the Zoharic river, the Edenic river, that you really are immersed. Is it total dissolving? I don't know. I mean, if you're talking to each other, probably not. But there's a definite loosening of that. But Abulafian Kabbalah tends to be practiced solo. You may start with some other people around, but it's an absorptive kind of experience. Whereas this it's more like it's like a jazz ensemble. It's a little different. Yeah. So this is interesting. They're not they don't have to be mutually exclusive. People can have multiple practices. So, you know, I don't think, yeah. And I can think of that. Some Kabbalists who did both of those things. And obviously in Tzfat, Cordovero, you know, had a Zoharically influenced Kabbalah that was expanded. And he also did Abulafian type practices. And Yitzchak de Minaco, Isaac Avako, had a whole array of different practices that he tried. So, yeah, so it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. Just noting that. Yeah, and I love the way in which Chaviva Padaya, when she's talking about ecstasy here, well, Melila wants to distinguish between ecstasy as an experience of totally leaving behind the self completely, and another kind of the soft kind of experience of ecstasy that so here. So I'm going to go to page 316 of Melila. This is 316 in the book, and in the, I think that was the version that gave you that chapter, right? Says, what if we adopt a broader definition of ecstasy? Let us say it refers to an extreme deviation from the perception of reality as experienced in ordinary states of wakefulness by consciousness, the body, the senses, and emotion. It can be experienced either as terrifying or pleasurable departure from the human domain. If so, the Zohar documents many such events, right? An experience of atemporality, the dramatic enhancement of certain senses, a mystical connection with different grades. And she says, but understand it is only one component, even if the peak component in the course of the Zoharic mystical wave. And there's a sense here that when you are going up, you are doing this in Abulafian Kabbalah. Again, the purpose is not to rectify anything in the divine spheres. It's rather to remove the seals or the knots from consciousness, and to unify with the already perfect divine stream. Obviously, in Zohar Kabbalah, there is a notion of rectifying the divine, but I love the way Chaviva Padaya puts it. She says, and some of you are familiar with the expression, descent for the sake of ascent, right? But here it's the other way around. It is ascent for the sake of descent. In other words, you rise up and to this communion and rectification of the divine energies, and then having basked in those energies, you take it down for the healing of the world, right? And so ascent for the sake of descent. And there is a way that in this kind of consciousness, that the ecstasy here becomes an accelerator in the generating of blessing that you bring down, that you channel down for the benefit of all reality, right? The moments where every gesture, word, and insight is brimming with potential. The moments that produce, here from Alila, Mayim Nukbin, female waters, necessary for the union of the male and female within divinity. The mystic participates in the world of divinity that he is narrating at this point. And from that moment of flow, there's a downward flow of channeling and regulating the divine delight, the Noam, the Shefa, for the purpose of a broader kind of healing. Okay, so I'll stop here for a second and see. So go for it, Gabrielle.
So one of the things that really struck me when I was reading that part was how it mirrors the arc of a prayer service.
Right, because the prayer service is based on to some degree on this whole wave. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so I
think at least through Luria. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right, and so I think that, like, even though I've been introduced to this idea, let's say, earlier on, just reading this sort of this Zoharic connection, it makes me think that being conscious of this, like really conscious of this inner prayer service with the companions of the minyan, is a potential mystical, a type of mystical engagement.
Yes, totally. And the thing is, I have to admit here that for me, it's pretty rare that I, first of all, I go like this rather than like this, right? Most of the time, and that's fine. And but it's rare that the peak for me is during the Amidah, and maybe that has something to do with the way in which we relate to the davening or stand in relation to, or maybe the way in which we do it. But some of it might have to do with the text. I do believe I've had, like, Kedusha can be incredible. I know that's really, I've been there, but I think it's very often in our circles, it's easier to get there. In Birchot HaShachar, you're warming up, but Psukei de Zimra can get there more. And the other counter to all this, or complement to it, if you wish, is just to bring everyone into the conversation. In a Lurianic understanding, I could show you the chart. Basically, we do this sometimes in our prayer. You start in the world of Asiya and in the Birchot HaShachar, the early morning blessings, right? And then you go into the world of relation, the world of Yetzirah, through the Psukei de Zimra, when you join in the chorus of praise with other creatures and constellations, right? So you start out in Asiya with the embodied self, okay? You open up the breath, and you open up the channels, you go out more, and then you go, by the time you get to the Shema, you're in big mind of Bria, and then when you get to the Amidah, after the standing prayer, after that, you're in the world of Atzilut, of pure consciousness, and then you come back down. So the Torah service is Bria, and Musaf, which we don't really do very much, right? Is Yetzirah, and then the concluding prayers at the end of the davening is you come back to Asiya. So it has that kind of arc to it. And in our circles, let's put it this way: it's a long fuse going up, right? And then you get there, and then we go zoom, not that you can't do that. I think it's easier to come down quickly once you're opened, but we don't have that. And in the Piazetzner, in the Esh Kodesh, Kolonos Kalman Shapira of the Warsaw neighborhood of Piazetzna, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, he was killed in Treblinka, murdered. He has a whole notion that really the preparation for prayer, the meditation in silence before prayer, is the highest realm. You go to Olam Hashtika, and then when you enter into prayer, you're already coming down. But what you're doing is you're bringing the energy down. right? You're bringing the energy down through the narration. So that's another notion that's really interesting. Okay, Linda, Leah, and then Gabrielle. Gabrielle, if you wanted to finish what you were saying,
right.
I just
and
wanted
get Linda, Leah.
I'm just because I don't want to lose what you said. You were
Right.
talking about this sort of like, middle kind of undulation, and I actually think that
Right.
that it's almost like we like if you look at the Kaddish.
Yes.
The Kaddish is like moving us through all of the worlds between the worlds that we're
Right.
focused on. Like we might be in Yetzirah, but then we use the Kaddish and it's like a swoosh through all of them. It's an integration. And so I really think that your hand movement, I really responded to that because I feel that in davening that we're like it's got ebbs and flows and peaks but yet it possibly is on an upward arc, like it almost like those terrible charts that we see with the pandemic, that it's like up and down, but it's on its way up, and then it's like
Yes,
or the stock market, it's like that kind of
that's right. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way of holding the variations, but the general arc. Yes, thank you, Linda, Leah. Then you're right. I don't want to lose the overall sense. This is a parenthesis, so let's
Malila's wave. But before you even said it, I was thinking I've been working with my morning meditation and prayers,
right?
And I have, in the last month, to refine them because I've been using the same thing for many years, and I have really found that that's my peak is when I bring the energy down with my invocations. I'm doing actually less physical movement so that I receive more of the energy. But I've also simultaneously expanded the number of short, what I call haiku prayers from the morning service. It's interesting. I've done both. I've done a balance because I yearn to have more peak experience in my service. So I'm just fascinated by this conversation, and I know it's another conversation.
Yeah, it's another conversation.
Really,
thank you,
Gabrielle, for saying this so much.
Thank you for bookmarking this. It's what Linda, Joe Doctor, calls a parking lot conversation, saving it for the parking lot. Okay, here. There you go. I just put this here. That peak conscious, not peak. I mean, piquing curiosity, maybe, but not a fit of pique.
And no P-E-K peaking. No, P-E-E-K.
Yeah. Peaking. Yeah, a glimpse. That's very Shefa. Yeah, that's right. We could play with this. First, we start with our fit of peak. Then we peak. Yeah. Okay. Peak fabric. Oh my goodness. All right. So, and I think what Malila wants to say after all this is that by and large, when she's talking about the mystical wave, there are cases in the Zohar where the ecstasy brings about something that is more akin to experience of awe or terror, even that you can see in the Merkavah tradition. But by and large, it is a pleasurable kind of experience. It emphasizes the emotional spectrum, page 319, of joy, satisfaction, pleasure, delight, expansion, illumination, crowning, and saturation, right? Each one of the terms that she has that are here in English correspond to a Hebrew term and ultimately to an Aramaic term here. Its descriptions of human contact with the divine, are saturated with hues and shades of erotic experience, and their language is the language of love. And then she says, well, there are ones of fright. Linda, Dominic, I'm sorry, has her hand up.
What I was going to say is, however, a fit of peak transformed could lead to a peak experience.
Yes, it could. Thank you for that. Absolutely right. Thank you so much.
If you're wearing Gabrielle's PK fabric.
Yeah, that you have to even tell me about. I don't even know from that, so that's awesome. And when we weave the texture, the pagod, um, and so I think one of her points about the Zoharic mystical experience is not only that of the softening of the boundaries between the divine and the human, the kind of how semi-permeable are you, or how permeable are you? That's like one of the questions. And when, what kind of experiences that does it let in, and when is it like Gore-Tex? When is it semi-permeable in both directions? When is it when does that is the border just the thinnest possible ever, and maybe even dissolving for a moment? We can think of a lot of good metaphors, and I think the metaphors are useful. For example, there was a guy named Robert Lerner, who knows whether he's still with us, who a number of decades ago, I believe, wrote an article on um, metaphors of liquids in talking about Christian mystical union in the Middle Ages. And I never really read the article. It's more that I saw references to it. So I kind of got the sense that, I can think of it. It's like oil and vinegar, or is it drops of water in the pool, right, where it's complete dissolution, right? Is it something that is oil and vinegar, which are separate, but in the agitation or of an experience may temporarily combine, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of interesting metaphors for understanding the experience, or where sometimes on the surface that there's a certain part of the liquids that form one kind of substance, but not the totality of it. You can play with this. You can even go to viruses, though I'm not sure I want to go there right now. And yeah, but what she talks about Zoharic mysticism being distinguished by contained rather than an eruptive quality. And this is something that I also find interesting, because there is a framework that generates the experience. We talked already about rituals of, I see you, Linda Leah, rituals of entry, of preparation, right? Whether they're washing the hands, whether they are lifting the hands, right? The left, the hand on the heart, right? One hand over the other. Phrases that are chanted. Other experiences of coming down that kind of seal the experience, a kind of chatima of languaging usually, and kissing at the end. It's an acknowledgement of where you have been. And so there is a kind of container for this. Think of, those of you who work with Shefa, know very often that she doesn't, if she's opened you up to this flowing love, she makes sure that it's closed and sealed by the end, so it doesn't go spilling all over the place, right? And or how important it is, how you leave fasting and enter into eating again, right? You need to have a certain kind of consciousness there, and a kind of transition, a kind of ma'avar. And there is a need for an outro to recover, right? And the Zohar will talk about, when you are in the experience of uncovering and expansion, there's a way that you need to be able to cover, to redress, and to recover in a different sense where you've been. And she talks also not just about the structure of entry, peak, coming down, and closure, but also certain times that also serve as a kind of vessel. Like, for example, midnight to dawn, or Shabbat as being et ratzon, of the frame of time. And there is another kind of circle or frame for the experience through a couple others. For example, and then I'll get to you, Linda Leah. Okay, other frames. There's a social frame, mystical companionship. Yeah.
Well, the frame that interested me the most, because it was the component that I've had the most trouble with, is Rabbi Shimon himself.
The teacher.
That the teacher provides the entry and the exit and the limits. And that really helped me, because one of the things that concerned me about my growing understanding of Zohar presentation was that he was this beyond Moses kind of figure.
Yeah.
And that always makes me nervous in my Judaism, that that's not what we're about. And so I really appreciated her section on the role of the teacher as part of the container.
Right, as part of the container.
I thought that's the one.
Right, and you know,
I like the time. I like Shabbat. I like the midnight to dawn. All that. That was great. Yeah.
You know, and that's a whole thing. And you know, in our circles, you know, we tend not to. We tend to have some issues, let's put it that way, with having one person being in that role all the time, right? It's noticed a Rebbe as function, or you know, that we take turns. Okay, now I'm holding the container more or less this time, although we all are to some extent. But you know, Gabrielle is going to be doing it, and Jane's going to be doing, Linda Leah is going to be doing it, and Lucinda and you know, Linda Joe is going to be doing it when we have meetings, and it's going to be other people too, right? Depending on the moment. And but there is, and think about the role of, I don't know if you want to call it facilitator, keeper, shomer, shomeret. I mean, they're co-host, Jane. You know, I mean, there is the designated driver. I don't know what, you know, is you know, what role do different people play, and sometimes people play unacknowledged roles in that, right? And silent roles in it, but nonetheless are holding the container in a way. And where does responsibility and partnership lie? That's very, very interesting to me. And the teacher, responsible both to the disciples and to the broader community, contributes greatly to the moderation of ecstatic experience. You don't go totally tripping out. And you know, she also talks about Torah and the exegetical structure in the Zohar. That will also, the text will also give some kind of structure, and you might come back to the text, which is a framing text, and you start with it and you come back to it very often. Another fascinating notion is, like, what role does being in exile have? And I'm not going to go into that now. We'll save that, I think, for you know, maybe next time. I'll bookmark that to talk about that too. And you know, what you may need some protective cover to gestate the seeds, right? Whether it's a womb like Bina, for it to, maybe it needs to unfold in the dark, or in silence, or over time, even outside the frame that you have right now. And so last thing I'll say before I'm going to call on Gabrielle is, I do this because I'm going to forget it otherwise. And this is a transmission of Reb Zalman. That's why I want to give it now. You know, I've always been really interested in those texts that talk about the sacred moment always being there, or Shabbat being energy that you can always draw on. And even his friend, the Amshanover Rebbe, whose son is now the Yam Shenova Rebbe, in Beit Vegan, a neighborhood in Jerusalem. He has a practice of extending Shabbat, so that he didn't extend it all the way to Tuesday night, but he extended it through Sunday, an extra day being in Shabbos consciousness. But I was talking with Reb Zalman, he says, it's really important to make Havdalah. You really need that kind of closure. He said, and I realized in conversation with him that once you have that kind of closure, it's actually easier to extend something of Shabbat or bring something of Shabbosdikkeit into the week. But if you don't get that closure, there's a tendency, not absolutely, but tendency for it to dribble away, rather than to take something of its potency and bring it into the week. So I want to, that's another thing to think about. I know I don't know. Even songs that fade out, rather than have a firm kind of ending, really they fade out in a way that you can take it into you. It doesn't. There's a conscious fade out, as it were, and so there's something to think about. Okay, Gabrielle.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying that, I'm thinking that we do have like moments of Shabbat in the day, like
absolutely,
and that that we do carry, like it's impossible to be so compartmentalized in our experience, and that we hopefully are building and caring about that we need the Havdalah, but we also need to bring in the Shabbos into the moment too.
right.
I mean,
right.
that's what makes us present.
Right.
But my initial comment, was about the seeds that you said, that I really found, that was a very potent, thing about this idea that we're given. This is, I mean, I think a challenge of contemporary circles and even spiritual circles is that we're given so much information, we're given so many gems, and that it can't be, that they have to be seeds, and they need soil, and they need to grow, and we can't just collect seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and I feel like as a person who's like in a rabbinic program where I'm being, seeds are being thrown at me left, right, and center, which is part of the process, right? But that I'm so acutely aware of the need to integrate, and in the condition of what I'm in, like I have to be pragmatic. But I'm thinking, like, in terms of spiritual practice, which is, and hopefully there's a marriage between your education and your spiritual practice, but that more isn't necessarily better. I'm not talking about for education. I'm talking about like in a spiritual practice, that we need time to let it sit and to reflect on it, which is, one of the things, that is attractive to me, for example, about the nigun, that you have this sort of like wordless space, like you have had a teaching or something, or you're going to have a teaching, but that you have like this, that the silence in the music is part of the music. And so I feel that the seeds relate to that. I'm just like, it's just my own personal struggle that I'm sharing right now with that. Cause I want it all. Like I want all the information, but I also want to integrate it. So, and it's an impossible, crazy position to be in.
Right.
It kind of also reflects our consumer culture.
Yeah.
So let me just go around. I see Linda Leah, and I realize we're kind of at the end of this time right here talking about it. But I want to give. I know it's Linda Leah and Gabrielle and I have been like yapping. I mean, I've been yapping mostly, but you've been like jumping in, and I just want to make sure that some of the folks who are
I'd say something here.
Great.
in response to Gabrielle.
Sure.
You know, I too find a challenge with the wordiness in some of the services. I feel like I need more open space to really deeply dive into myself and feel the energy of spirit. And so I have this conflict also about the Jewish service versus a more meditative service. And I tend toward enjoying and really flying more spiritually when there is not so many words. So, you know, I there's that paradox, because I love my Jewish tradition, but, you know, our kind of intellectualism sometimes overwhelms, to me, the spirituality. And for me, it's always the spirituality first, versus like knowing more facts or more what this rabbi said or that rabbi said. So, you know, it's holding the energy of both, and each of us finding our own way through what's available to find our own path to Hashem and Shekhinah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else? Wait, Linda, Joe, did you? I'm just reading your body language here.
I was just going to say, it's interesting because going back to the ascent, I mean, I actually think that, particularly with Birkat HaShachar and Zikei de Zimra, that lays the grounding for a lot of that, so that there's a different relationship with the word. It's interesting. It's an interesting thought, because it's I do think some of the service is set up to support that with the the chanting and the nigunim and the melodies, or with the the melody. Piyutim, you say that both in Ashkenazi and Sephardi? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting, your comment about the meditation that happens before the service, which is also interesting.
Well, that's a custom.
Yes.
That, you know, the Hasidim Rishonim used to
That's what they did
for sha'ah achat, you know, an hour, but doesn't mean an hour, a period of time, you know, but before they would enter into prayer.
So they're already in liquid space.
Right. And so when they re-enter the world of languages, that it's like this notion of language emerging out of sound and out of silence, sound, word, you know, and so you know, you're bringing the energy down so that the silence is energizing the words.
Yeah.
Okay, so Linda Lay, if you can just briefly say it, and then we'll move on.
Well, this conversation is exactly what I wanted to ask about earlier in the
about Bergson.
There's a section where Melila just references the debt owed to Akiva about the balance between the transcendent and the present, which is exactly what everybody's been talking about.
Right.
And I would love to have the opportunity to learn more about what that meant. And it doesn't have to be now. But again, that's another thing I didn't want lost.
Right. A lot of stuff is going to be lost here because it's limited time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's how I could conceptualize this conversation, because we're talking about creating what I consider to be the transcendent time. Lucinda's yearning for more space. One of the great blessings of Rabbi Josh at the Reform congregation, which used to give you 30 seconds for silent meditation, is that he now conducts most of the Amidah in silence and tells people to offer the words of their hearts. In other words, it's giving people actual time. So that's been a big advantage. And then the thing about Henri Bergson, when I went and read his stuff, he's talking about non-duality. It's really clear that's what he's talking about. This interpenetration of your intuition into an object in time, and then his followers took it into space, and that the boundaries disappear. He's talking about non-duality. I was blown away. This is a 19th century French philosopher.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know what I still don't know is like to what extent he was influenced by his Hasidic forebears. That I don't know.
What I read didn't refer to it, but boy,
no, but he did.
It really felt like he had been.
They were not marginal. They were central. I mean, but who knows? Yeah. So thank you. So let's shift for a second. Yana, 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 na, 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 na. Yana, yana, yana. Na, oh, 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 oh. I na 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 na. Ay 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 na 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 na. So let us open our document, which is 01. It is the Rav Metivta, and we'll just take a look a couple of passages here. I want to have time for like two kind of opening outs of the text here. So we'll see what what we're able to do. One has to do with that Oraita section that I sent you for this time. And yeah, and the other is something that you may not expect, and that has to do with the women in paradise. And I have a little bit more to share with you on that. And I have music for both of those opening outs. And so on page 17 of the Rav Metivta text, does everyone have that? We can try to put it in the, what I'm going to do, rather than put it in the chat, on a share screen, I'll give you that text again so you can open it. Let's see.
Is that the one?
Is it document 01?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
01C or 01?
No, 01 for now. 01
Oh, so it's last week's. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to start there first.
Okay.
Let me see whether this is the one that's all the way open. I'll just put it. Oh, I lost it. Hold on 1 second. I have to do an open the chat again.
Does that start with all this about so that he would go?
I can't tell you right now because I'm trying to put something in the chat.
Okay.
As soon as I've done.
And the one I have starts with as they were sitting and discussing this night. So I'm using this week's text.
No, it's not.
Email. There was one that was just 01 Rab.
Yeah, here I put it in. I think I put it in the chat to everyone. Hopefully you know. So it's the one we've been using.
Right. So Lucinda, that one is 01C. So that was also sent. This is 01.
Yeah, I think, didn't I just put it in the chat? Do you not?
Oh, okay, got it. 01.
Yeah.
He said further. That one. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So on page 17 of that, and I'll just read a little bit and then I'll, let's see. We're going to read this part a little. You know what? I'm going to skip that, even though I like it. I'm going to go to, okay. Let's go to page 19. Okay, page 19. It's 162b. It goes, at that moment, all of them flew away. Okay, so this is a moment here where the companions are leaving one kind of cave or world within this pardes of on high, the Metivta, that academy on high, and they are they're about to enter another hechal, another palace.
Yeah.
So someone want to read for us at that moment, all of them flew away? Yeah, go ahead, Gabrielle.
At that moment, all of them flew away, and the companions saw nothing. They were left alone beneath the trees of the garden. They saw another opening. They entered there. They saw a palace. They entered and sat down. Two youths were there. Raising their eyes, they saw a dwelling embroidered with all kinds of designs in all colors of the world, and above it was spread a cover of sparkling light upon which the eyes were unable to gaze. To a distance of 2 miles, they could see within the dwelling until the place where the curtain was spread. From there on, they saw nothing.
You just stop here for a second here, and think, what is this visual experience? This is of a kind of mishkan, right? And train ulamin havu taman, two youths were there. Zakfu einin v'hamu had mashkena mekadma b'chol zinei tziurin ugvanim de alma ve'ale paris prisa de nahora menatzitza de la yachlin einin istakla. And so any kind of thoughts on what this what is being seen here? They enter another palace, right? And what do they see? Yeah, go ahead, Gabrielle.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is, like, when you're in the Mishkan and then you go into the Holy of Holies, that they're going into different worlds by entering different spaces.
Right.
And that they have their parochet in a way, like, that they have the curtain, that there's reference to even like the holy textiles in
right.
this.
Yeah, it's but just beautiful, and all the colors of the world, right? It's that's an amazing kind of passage there. It's like the Mishkan, where everyone brings their free will offerings, and Bezalel and Ohaliav somehow help include and shape all those offerings. And then above it was a cover of sparkling light. That's almost like the Holy of Holies there, upon which the eyes were unable to gaze. But somehow, notice that they're able to have this like telescopic vision or telephoto vision, right? They could see within that dwelling until, like, for a distance of 2 miles. And then there's a revelatory experience of like this, like of all these hues and patterns, and then a world which couldn't be seen, right? Beyond that. It's like really this amazing. The canopy of just read from Fishbane here, right here. The way it talks about the lyric, nearly musical quality of rhythm and sound, right? So mashkina mirkama, Paris Parisa de Nahora Menatzitsa, right? A depiction of beauty in which the mystery of the transcendent is awakened, even as the imagery calls forth sensory pleasure of the beautiful, right? And right, so that just strikes me, and that they're also seeing. It goes down a couple lines there where it goes, gazes and sees. Can you continue with that, Gabrielle? It's just skip a paragraph, in other
Sure.
words.
Whoever gazes and sees, his eyes will be blinded. Whoever
Right.
does not gaze, sees, and is open.
Right. That's kind of a paradox there.
The tree of 18, when it bends, it will stand erect and rise. If it does not bend, the evil serpent consumes it.
Right.
Whoever enters two cherubim within, his will is fulfilled. Whoever speculates is far from his wish. Offering of a child is perfectly received.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into all those things that are going on in this texture. What I'm interested is, though, about there's a kind of seeing through the closed eye that happens at a certain point. In other words, the eyes open for a while, and then it switches to in some kind of inner vision, even though all of this, and to some extent, may be a kind of inner vision, but it's being presented as some kind of sensory vision that happens, and they hear that voice here saying what you just read, which is almost like it's another one of these cryptic gnomic recitations in the Zohar. But I want us to, when we're talking before about the word here, there's something about the auditory here as well as the visual that's really, really interesting. And then we're going to come back to the passport or the pass key. So on page 20, someone other than Gabrielle willing? The voice ceased.
I'm having trouble like finding the document because I looked at what you sent this month and I went to 01 Rav Metivta. Is that correct?
It should be.
And then what page are we on then?
Page 20
It's page 64 of the document.
of the.
But in red at the bottom, it says page 20.
I had the same problem, and you have to go to Doc 01, Sites of Wonder, and Rav Metivta.
Right.
And it's the second set of page 63. There's another page 63, which is what was also sent today. So it's.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I just put that in.
That's why the red numbering is useful.
The red numbering. Okay. It's why do I put that red numbering? Because if you open a PDF document, it will say page 20 on the top of it, and you can cycle through the pages using the numbers that I'm referring to now. Okay.
Because it says excerpt 1 Shmot, and then further down it goes excerpt 2, and that's the one that we're doing now. Rav Metivta beginning.
Okay, if I'm on Rav,
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, Linda, but okay.
It's in this document.
The top of the page should read what, Elliot? This voice ceased?
This voice ceased. Yeah, what I did simply, I sent out 01, and then when I added a few things, I had an expanded one called 01, simply so you could have it all in the same document. Okay, and it's anyhow. Go. I think I mentioned.
I'm ready to read. If somebody.
Okay. I'm sorry for the confusion. I try to get it in the email that I sent to you, but okay, that's fine. I suppose we could put it in the chat, each time we're using these documents, and maybe we can do that, or someone can do it, so I don't have to do that. That would be great. Okay. So go ahead, Linda.
Oh, I found it actually in what you sent also.
Can I start reading?
Yeah, it should. Yes, go ahead. If someone could, it doesn't have to be Jane. Someone could just put it in the side column, so I don't have to worry about it. None of you have to worry about it either. Okay, someone who has it, you can drag it into the chat, the document into the chat. There's a place in the chat where it says file, and you just click on that and you put it in there. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Or you could screen share it if you have it on your screen.
Yeah, but screen share, I can't see anyone, so I'd rather not. I mean, I'm willing to, if everyone says if people say they need it, I will do it. Okay, who needs it? You better say right now, because
Well,
Put
you
it in
know,
the chat, Elliot.
I'm opening up my ears because I can't find it. I'm, you know, I'll just listen.
This voice ceased.
It's not in the file that I just sent you.
I'll send it to you, Lucinda.
Someone send it to Lucinda directly. Okay, go ahead, Linda Lane.
This voice ceased. Those two youths said, "Do you possess an insignia?" They replied, "Yes." They took out those two roses and smelled them. And evidently the first rose was in a part of this document that's been lost. I read that somewhere in a footnote.
Right.
The youth said, "Be seated until you hear two matters of ancient mysteries from the masters of the academy. And these must always remain secret within you."
Okay, which is right. And then we're going to just, it goes on to say, they heard a couple of utterances, and then the youth say, go out, go out.
Go out, go out. Not permitted
Yeah.
anymore.
Right. One of the youths said, okay, go ahead.
One of the youths took out an apple and gave it to them. He said, "Smell this." They smelled it and emerged. And of all that they had seen, they forgot nothing.
Right. So that's kind of
I could use that.
a ceiling. Yeah. The apple of memory here. And again, it just strikes me that, it's like, it is when you leave Eden, right? You bring something of the smell of the apple, of the wonders of the fruit that has grown on this tree of life. And you take something of the whiff with it, with you, of the whiff with you. And you can see at the top of 21, you can read that too.
Okay, moving right along.
Right.
They went out with him and waited by the mouth of the cave, going over with one another all that they had seen and learned there.
Okay. And one more. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Rabbi Eli came beaming like the sun. They said to him, "Have you heard some new Torah?" He replied, "Certainly, and I have been given permission to tell you."
Right. And so he goes on and he starts talking about the mountains, and you see here where it says on new moons, Sabbaths, and festivals. Just read there. It's down a paragraph.
Mountains.
No, it's
on new moons, Sabbaths, and festivals, these heads of academies gather at the mountain of Aaron the priest and are stimulated by him, entering his academy, where they are renewed with the purity of holy dew descending upon his head and of the anointing oil flowing upon him. So that's that eloquence, whatever that word was fabulous. With him, they are all renewed with loving rejuvenations of the Holy King. So this is called the Academy of Love.
Right. And what this is a riff on, you can see this in footnote 37, is it's from the passage that's talking about Hinema tovu manaim shevet achim gam yachad. It's that, how lovely it is for brothers, let's say brothers and sisters, to dwell together. And it goes on to say it is like fine oil on the head running down upon the beard. I'm getting into this now, but yes, descending over the collars of his robes, and in the collar of his robes in Hebrew, it is al pi midotav, through the midot. So it's another way of saying that it's the oil is going down through all of the sefirot, going down through the entire divine world. It's like dew of Mount Hermon that descends upon the mountains of Zion. That's Shechina, right? And for there, Yudei Vave ordained blessing, everlasting life. So it's the flow of love going through from the mountains of the highest Sefirot, going all the way down. And Aaron, remember that the priests are those who are who bless others with love, the flowing of love here. And so that it's been like they're in the Academy of Love. Sometimes it's called the Academy of Light. And it just struck me that, you know, what is this Metivta? I think it's, let me see the Aramaic, I think it's derachame, but for love here. Anyhow, I love that
Yeah.
passage there. And okay, so let us go to page 22. Lucinda, do you have it now?
I do.
Okay, so let's go right here.
Oh,
It's
God.
talking about how there's some sort of transmission from Moses to Aaron. It's like you're inside the, you're right at the tabernacle there, right in the Mishkan. And it goes, Moses utters a statement. I just want to read those two paragraphs, the second to last and the
Yep,
last one.
I see it. Moses utters a statement, unexplained, to Aaron, and Aaron clarifies it to the notables of the academies.
Mm-hmm.
How does he explain it? By all those springs that were blocked to him when the time of Joshua came,
Mm-hmm.
and now he restores them with many wonders, fountains, springs, and streams flowing from every single word.
Right.
Similarly, all the virtuous women of this generation come to Miriam at these times, and then they all ascend like columns of smoke in this desert. That day is called the day of celebration. On the eve of Sabbath and the eve of festivals, all the women come to Miriam and know how to delve into discovering the master of the universe. Happy is this generation above all generations of the world.
Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's kind of cool. And they're getting this access to Dora Midbar. We spoke about the generation of the desert, and the way it's seen sometimes in the Zohar is being this generation of being in the flow with the divine here. And you can see um, um, it's interesting because there's this time warp that's going on. It's as though that they're well after the time of Joshua, and they are going back to a time before the well springs were sealed. And it goes from talking about this flowing of the streams to Miriam, which is kind of interesting because she is the kind of the keeper of the flow of the streams here. So that's kind of it's an interesting segue. And the other thing is that they all ascend like columns of smoke in the desert. That's a riff on Song of Songs. Mizot ola mina midbar ketimrot ashan mekuteret mor ulevona. Who is this who arise, and mizot in the feminine, right? Who is this who is coming up from the desert, rising from the desert, like columns of smoke, katimrot hashan, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense. And so this is, there's a flow down and there's a rising up that happens here, which is kind of interesting. Any thoughts on this before I do show you something else that's unusual here? Okay, so we'll just finish this up here, and then I'm going to show you something from a part in that I didn't give you before. So this, I'm going to have to put this either in the chat or put it up on the screen. But I'll just read this here on the next page, page 23, internal, okay, 67 if you like that. They emerge from the academy of Moses and fly to the heavenly academy, and those who are deserving fly to the supreme academy. So we're going into all these different hechalot here. Of this generation is written, Ashrei ha'am shekachalo, Ashrei ha'am shehavaya Elohav. Happy is the people as it's so. Happy the people whose God is Yud He Vav He. That's of course in our Ashrei prayer, and so this is just after they that this is kind of the afterglow after they've smelled the apple and have this other kind of vision that's happening here. And okay, so let's see if I can give you this right now. I can give it to you multiple ways, and if you can't get it, I'll just put it up on the screen. Not a problem for this. I'm going to go right here, Rav Metivta, and I am going to put in this right now. Oh, sorry. See if that goes in right here. Oh yeah, maybe the other one didn't get up there properly. Does everyone see that, what I just put up? In the chat? Did you get it?
Oh, so
In
we
the
have to put
chat.
it in the chat.
It's in the chat, and it says 04A Weissler Trinas.
And what do we do? Click on.
Click on it, and you got it. I tried sending something to you before, but maybe it didn't. Yeah, the other one got to you.
I don't
All
think
right.
we understood how to download it.
You click
Just
on it.
double click it, and then it'll
Double click it. It should automatically come to you.
And where
I'm
did
gonna
it
put
end
it.
up?
I'm gonna put it
Ah,
up on the
yeah.
screen here.
I see it now.
Okay, I'm gonna just put it up on the screen.
It's tiny.
Don't worry, I'm gonna make it bigger. Okay.
I mean, the print is tiny.
Yeah. I'm gonna make it bigger. Don't worry. Okay. So
Never
what's interesting here is I'm gonna show you a passage from the. Is everyone seeing the screen? The screen share?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Okay, and I'll read it because I can, I can read it with on the screen here. And so there's a passage in Rav Metivta that I didn't share with you yet, but it's just a few pages ahead. And what the companions do is they see what's going on in some of the other in some of the other chambers. And this is Chava Weissler's translation of it. I could give you Danny Matt's, but this is really interesting. What I'm going to show you here is a passage from the Zohar that the Zohar in the 17th century was translated into Aramaic. At least big chunks of it were translated into Aramaic, and we know that that they were sometimes studied in women's circles. And there's a woman by the name of Sarah Bas Toivim, Sarah, the daughter of Toivim, who included passages from the Zohar in Yiddish in her tchinas, and this in this vernacular supplicatory prayers that both men and women recited sometimes in this period. And what Chava Weissler did, she says there's some there are some tchinas, Tkhines, tchinas, tchinot in Hebrew, that really focus, for example, on women's daily lives or on the mitzvot that traditionally speaking were focused on women's practice, on practices that were solely for women or sometimes primarily for women. And but there are others that address a different kind of issue. That Chava Weissler puts it: how high can a woman's soul rise? Right? And so this is looking at, and one of these tchinas is basically a riff on the Zohar. And I'll just show you here that there is Akiva Ber is one of the Yiddish, wrote one of the Yiddish reworkings of the Zohar that probably was the intermediate text that that Sarah Bas Toivim used in her Shloisha Shorim, the 3 gates. And we'll just take a look at this right now. We'll take a look at first at the Zohar here. And again, without Danny's alternate versions and commentary, which would be helpful. And then we'll take a look at what Sarah Bas Toivim does. And then I'm going to play for you a chant that Laura Wetzler takes based on the English translation by Chava Weissler from the Zohar. Okay, and so this will be kind of cool, and then we'll open it up and see what you come up with here. Okay, does someone want to read this, or I said I can if the text isn't clear enough.
You can read it.
Go ahead.
It's hard to read.
Oh, my teacher, they showed me 6 palaces that contained enjoyments and delights, in the place where the curtain is spread in the garden. For from that curtain onwards, males do not enter at all. And one of the palaces is Bithia, daughter of Pharaoh.
Yeah, I would probably say Bithia. Yeah, Bithia. The daughter of Pharaoh. Yeah.
And several myriads and thousands of righteous women are with her. Each one of them has places of light and delight without any crowding. 3 times a day, criers announce, "Behold, the image of Moses, the faithful prophet, is coming." Then Bithia goes out to the place where she has a curtain and sees the image of Moses and bows before it and says, "Happy is my lot that I brought up this light, and this is her special pleasure more than all the other women." She returns to the other women, and they devote intensive study to the commandments of the Torah. All of them are in the forms they had in this world, and they are clothed in garments of light like garments of males, except that the women's garments do not shine as brightly.
Okay, so you're not going to get rid of patriarchy completely here. Go ahead. Okay.
In that world, they devote intensive study to the commandments that they were unable to fulfill in this world and the reasons for them. And all the women who dwell with Bithia, daughter of Pharaoh, are called tranquil women because they have not suffered the pains of hell at all.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
In the next palace is Sarah, daughter of Asher.
Yes, in Hebrew we say Serach with a het. Yeah.
Sarah, and several myriads and thousands of women with her. 3 times a day it is announced before her, "Behold, the image of Joseph comes." She rejoices and goes out to a curtain she has and sees the light of the image of Joseph and rejoices and bows down before him and says, "Happy was the day on which I gave the good news about you to my grandfather." Afterward, she returns to the other women, and they busy themselves with the praises of the Lord of the world, giving thanks to his name. And each of them has several places and joys. Afterward, they turn once again to the commandments of the Torah and the reasons for them.
Yeah, okay. So, that there is, right. Okay, it goes right here. The forehead, which is not permitted. All day long, the women are by themselves, as I told you, and so are the men. But every night they all come together, since the hour of union is at midnight, both in this world and that world. And there's the union of cleaving of souls, light to light. And this, by the way, if you want to know when this the tchina that's going to be used for this has to do with Rosh Chodesh, And yes, we can notice some interesting things here that are surprising, and things that also don't correspond to the social reality, and things that do correspond to the broader social reality at that time. This is a little bit of a historical study here for just a moment. Right. So the things that are unusual is, first of all, the notion that women are studying Torah, right? Like as though, which is typically in the culture we're talking about, usually for men, right? Okay, much more so. That's one thing. the second thing that's similar in some ways is some of the instrumental significance of the women here, right? That they that Bitya brought forth and saved Moses, right? Serach bat Asher, according to the tradition, there's a woman by the name of Serach bat Asher who is the daughter of the granddaughter of the daughter of Asher, the son of Jacob, right? A granddaughter of Jacob, but she's also mentioned in the Exodus from Egypt, the same name. And so there's a whole tradition that she was the one who lived for 450 years and knew what it was like before going to Egypt and knew what it was like being in Egypt and carried the tradition coming out as well. And she was the one who knew where the bones of Joseph had been buried that were carried out with her. So she is the memory keeper in this way. So there are traditions in the Midrash about Serach bat Asher. And that's as she sees the light of Joseph, and then all the other some of the other ancestors and the different matriarchs and prophets, women prophets, and so on and so forth. And so this is again from Chava Weissler. We're going to see some of the changes that happen. Now, I'm going to say that some of these you can look at this yourself. Some of these changes happened in the Yiddish translation that was done by a man. So it just so happens here. But this is what Sarah Bas Toivim uses for the Tchina that she chanted and others chanted on Rosh Chodesh. Someone else want to read this? Or this is a little different part of it here. It's Queen Esther.
I will.
Go
ahead. Is it starting with Lord of the World?
Lord of the World, yeah.
Lord of the World, I pray to you, God. I pray to you, God, as Esther the Queen prayed. Lord of the whole world, with your right hand and your left hand, you have created the whole world with both your hands. May you spread your mercies over me. Mm-hmm. There are also there in paradise 6 chambers in which there are several thousand righteous women who have never suffered the pains of hell. Queen Bitya, daughter of Pharaoh, is there. There is a place in paradise where a curtain is prepared to be opened, which allows her to see the image of Moses, our teacher. Then she bows and says, how worthy is my strength and how knowing is my power. I drew such a light out of the water. I brought up this dear light. This happens 3 times a day.
Okay, we'll just stop here for a second. I realize you can't see the whole text here, but you just even remember any difference between the Zohar and what you see in this text here.
No.
Okay. There's nothing about Moses's light shining more, okay, or the garments of the men shining more. That part is not there. So it just is her talking about her power. Okay, just noting that. Okay, and continue, please.
Where was I?
Right here in the next chamber.
In next chamber, there are also thousands upon thousands of myriads of women, and
they're not practicing social distancing, but they're okay. Yeah, good. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Sarah, daughter of Asher, is a queen, and every day it is announced 3 times. Here comes the image of Joseph the righteous. Then she bows to him and says, praised is my strength, and how worthy is my power, that I was privileged to tell my Lord Jacob that my uncle was alive.
Yeah,
and in
the Midrash, she's the one who tells Jacob that Joseph is still alive. Okay.
And that I was privileged to, and in the upper chamber he studies Torah, and in the other chamber they sing hymns and praises and study Torah.
That should be she studies Torah. Okay. Okay.
And
I don't know why it came out as he here, but in the text, yeah, must be the text recognition was was misogynist. Okay, go ahead.
After describing the chambers of Yocheved and Deborah, the passage concludes, and the chambers of the matriarchs cannot be described. No one can come into their chambers. Now, dear women, when the souls are together in paradise, how much joy there is. Therefore, I pray you to praise God with great devotion and to say your prayers that you may be worthy to be there with our mothers.
Okay. Okay. So anyhow, I just want you to see that, in Rav Metivta, it's very interesting that there is, there are a parallel to the men studying there. There's something that's the women studying. Now, there's something else that's kind of interesting. They're talking about the women not, the men not coming into the women where the women are studying. However, it seems to be that the gaze here, or the narrative, does allow the men to see what's going on there in this visionary experience, which is kind of interesting to me. And so I would say someone could do a riff on this in some ways, and say, like, what were going on in the Pardes, in the women's in the women coming together for Rosh Chodesh, and out of some kind of interesting experience there, and it could be weaving Torah and weaving other sorts of things going on there. It strikes me as being, as potentially being interesting. You don't have to go there, but you might. And any comments before I play the text here? I play the song.
I have a comment.
I see. Okay, I don't see everyone's. Let me cycle through and see. I see that Linda Joe has her hand up, and I saw that Gabriella had her hand up, and Linda Leah has her hand up. Okay, so let me take it. Linda Leah, Linda Joe, and Gabrielle. Okay, and then I'll play this text for you.
Just really quickly, for my storytelling class, how many years ago, I did commit to memory at one point quite well a story, a Hasidic story about that starts with the women studying Torah together when somebody dies or something like that. Anyway, so that this was written about a rabbi's wife and they studied Torah together.
Right. Oh yeah, there clearly were women who did this. Yeah, no question. It's just interesting that in the Zohar this happens, and yet I don't see any discussion of this happening. Not in the Metivta on high, right? And so the fact that this is happening on high and that women are having access or doing this, however they're doing this, that's not happening in the world below. What does that signify? That's, I think, one of the interesting questions here. And it doesn't say what text they're studying and how they're riffing on it. So one could do something like this. You could go Kohenet on it, I suppose, but and look at forgotten texts, because look, in the Zohar, they have all kinds of forgotten texts that they start riffing on, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to do something Zoharic. I mean, it could be something that would be a parallel text to the Zohar, right? But it is interesting. So I think it was Linda Joe next, and then Gabrielle.
So
thank you so much, Linda Leah. Thank you.
So it was interesting, again, I mean, reiterating that, starting with the study of Torah, be it the men and the women, and Melila talks about that too. Right. In her comments. But the other thing that Melila talked about that I saw, this is an example of, she said, in order for that movement to happen, be it the tikkun, you need the feminine, you need the female. That the female has to be there. And she had it linked to water, that the female needed to be there for the male. And this is, I'm not talking about an individual man or individual woman. I'm more talking about male energy and feminine
female energy. Yeah, you have to rouse, you have to waken the the feminine waters.
You need the feminine waters to do it. And that is happening in higher levels.
Right.
in order for that to happen in lower worlds. So that's what I got out of this. It's very, very, very powerful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Gabrielle.
So in Joey Weisenberg, I read another detail on Sarah that really excited me, and that was that she played the harp in order to give the shocking message to Jacob, that is, so that he wouldn't die of shock.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, thank you.
So I'm thinking, like, when you, like, if you're thinking about activating this idea, like, is it possible, like, because you use like all of the ritual signs, like you could play the harp, you could say words, and then speak to the higher, these higher elevated mothers, or I don't know, it could be really fun and powerful, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, I that's really cool. And thanks for reminding us about the harp. That's so great. And so I'm gonna put up now. I will let's see if I can put it in as an easy kind of share now. I'm gonna do stop share for this. I'm gonna put in something. Is everyone
Can I ask you, Elliot, does Chava include Sarah Bastova in her Tehina's book?
Yes, she does. There's a chapter entitled "Women in Paradise."
Wow, that would be really important.
And it's taken from there. I mean, I can try to get it to you. I don't have it all scanned. I have like another version of it scanned.
We should buy it. I mean, we need to support all these people.
Yeah, that would be cool for us to study that at
yes.
Sure.
Yeah, I could see exact for the reference.
Which exact book are you talking about?
Okay, The Voices of the Matriarch.
Yeah.
Abba Weissler, and there's a chapter called, I think I might even have that chapter. I can put it in here, but you should get the book, Women in Paradise.
Chava lived in, oh, there it is. Gabrielle already sent it. She was here for a couple years ago. She was here for.
Oh, yeah, you sent it to everyone? Okay.
The access.
Oh, the book. Yeah, I'm going to just give you this file for right now. Yeah, okay. Which, hold on.
I have it somewhere.
Yeah, and we all have. I mean, anyone who took my mysticism class would have it. I had it here, and I'm going to open it out.
Not when I took mysticism.
Maybe not, because the book might not have been out then.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, do you see this now where it says file number 2? Do you get it? Okay, I'm going to give you one more thing right now here, and that.
But this was so powerful, just knowing that this,
no,
and that it was written down.
Yeah, let me put this in here. Well, you know, I feel like we need women. We need women and men. Sometimes women and
everybody.
Men. Different people. Yeah, different people like experimenting with this out of real experiences, though, being informed by some of the traditional texts, and it can be opened out by what people do with Kohenet and other places. I don't think it has to all come from within, but I think that you can definitely do something with this. Okay, so now I just gave you something. I'm going to put what I'm going to put back is the text that I just gave you. Now I'm going to play something from Laura Wetzler. Okay, so I'm going to go into
And who's Laura?
Oh, she's a singer songwriter. I met her once. It was at Eilat Chaim. She thinks she just passed through there, if I'm not mistaken. And years ago, well, I think a good while ago, I'll tell you. I think must have been at least 15 years ago, maybe even before she put this out. She has a CD called Kabbalah Music, Songs of the Jewish Mystics, and some of it's Middle Eastern, some of it's Yiddish, and this is one, okay, that is, I think, based on Chava's text here, but I'm going to play this again for you. Oh, you can vault. I have so many things open. One sec, sorry. I'm going to go back into my music. Oh my goodness. What the heck is going on here? Okay, I'm gonna clear the history of it. Okay. Oh wait, I think this is it. Let's see. The world I pray to you, God. Okay. Lord of the world, I pray to you, God, as clean as to a parade. Lord of the whole world, with your right hand and your left hand, you have created the whole world with both your hands. That you spread your mercies over me. There are also there in paradise 6 chambers in which there are several thousand righteous women who have never suffered the pains of hell. Bitty, the queen daughter of Pharaoh, is there. There's a place in paradise where a curtain is prepared to be opened, which allows her to see the image of Moses, our teacher. Then she bows and says, how worthy is my strength, how knowing is my power. I drew such a light out of the water, I brought up this dear light. This happens 3 times a day. The world I pray to you, God is created. There are also thousands upon myriads of women. And Serach, daughter of Asher, is a queen. And every day it is announced 3 times, here comes the image of Joseph the righteous. Then she bows to him and says, praised is my strength, how worthy is my power, that I was privileged to tell my Lord Jacob that my uncle Joseph was alive. And in the upper chamber he studies Torah, and in the other chambers they sing hymns and praises and study Torah. In the 3rd chamber is our mother Yocheved, the mother of Moses, our teacher, with many women, and they praise God, blessed be he 3 times a day, and say the song of the sea with great joy. Miriam the prophet with a timbrel in her hand is there, and many holy angels who are with her praise God's blessed name. In the 4th chamber sits Deborah the prophet with many thousands of women, and they praise God's blessed name, and they sing the song of Deborah. And the chambers the matriarchs cannot be described. No one can come into their chambers. Now, dear women, when the souls are together in paradise, how much joy there is. Therefore, I pray you to praise God with great devotion and to say your prayers, that you may be worthy to be there with our mothers.
Wow.
That's it. That's cool.
Very cool.
So, you know, so we didn't take the tour of the whole part of the Zohar, but we got a sense of part of it at least. And what I like that part with Miriam and the timbrel and the crossing the sea again. And this is a Rosh Chodesh hymn. So it's cool. And I have to see whether in the Zohar this is associated with Rosh Chodesh or whether it was Sarah Bas Toivim and the women who made that move. That's very easy for me to check. And I can almost do it in real time here, but maybe yes, maybe no. No, I don't have the right one with me. Oh, wait, I do. 167.
Did you already talk about the psychedelic video that you sent?
Yeah, we're gonna do that next.
Oh, okay.
So they
'Cause I
passed
love that.
judgment. They said, "Rabbi, I don't believe that it goes right." Oh, Rabbi, they're coming into the academies here. Memorandum, take this. They flew away, and they're going. All this, we did the past judgment. Yes, they passed judgment, and all the members left. And I asked permission for this. Oh, right. Therefore, they showed me what I haven't seen previously. And then there's the palaces. Yeah. So I don't believe, yeah, that this is Moshe de Leon talks actually in his Hebrew, Seder Gan Eden. He talks about these habitations as well. So it's the four matriarchs, and there it's four matriarchs, and Bethia, daughter of Pharaoh, not a Jew even, Yocheved, Miriam, Huldah the prophet, and Abigail, and yeah, and Chava Weiss, do they bring in here? This is, okay, I don't believe that they associate it with Rosh Chodesh. And so what's interesting is that Sarah Bas Toivim finds a ritual moment for this, which is, you know, the notion of Rosh Chodesh and special women's access to the flow of energy on that day. There's an interesting notion that that Joseph Gicatilia does this whole thing on Rosh Chodesh being the day when Shechina and Bina are in special communion, which is two typically female associated sfirot. So it's kind of an interesting thing there too. Okay, so I just mentioned that.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So Gabrielle, and then I have to
Could you repeat
move
that
on.
for a second?
Say it again.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that second? You said that Bina and what is?
Well, there's lots of times that Bina and Shechina have a special connection. It's not particularly unusual, but I found it in Joseph Gicatilia. I think it was in Sharei Ora, but maybe not. And I've tried to find it a couple times, and I probably didn't look carefully enough. But I actually saw that it says in Rosh Chodesh that there is a special kind of ascent, I think it's an ascent of Shechina to Bina, but there's this this deep communion of these two entities, and then I thought that it said, but I might be I might be misremembering. They say and therefore we don't have marital intercourse on that day. I mean, in other words, the way of this is good of embodying that would be two women getting together, So anyhow, it's associated with Rosh Chodesh though, and I don't know who it is. I mean, there is a tradition of special tchinas for women on Rosh Chodesh. That's not new. But going to the Zohar for that, I'm wondering if Sarah Bas Toivim was the originator of that, or whether that comes from some other place. And that's easy enough to find. You can do some searching on that, because then it's taking it into a text that was not in a ritual context and putting it in a ritual context. Okay. So another passage, we're going to still see another passage from Rav Metivta when we move to Shabbat, because some of the passages on Shabbat that I love the most come from Rav Metivta also. But I just wanted to go to another passage, which is talking about the Torah. And this was the passage I sent you for today. And I will move to it. I think was it 01C, maybe.
01C. We have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know what time there is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually go to 01D, because it's easier for me to move it from there. Okay, that means we're not looking at Danny's commentary right now, but this is a passage from the it goes right here. Rabbi Shimon wept and opened and said, Torah, Torah, light of all worlds, source of every spring and sea, all wells and rivers from you flow in all directions, above, below, all come from, that means on high and below, all come from you, most high, most low. Torah, Torah, how shall I describe you? A beloved doe, a gracious roe above and below. And that's an erotic image there. If you look at Danny's references, you'll see from the Talmud that has to do actually with some sort of lovemaking and intercourse. Torah, Torah, who of your lovers may suckle on you. Okay, it's Torah actually is a Shechina image here. The lights of your master, who will reveal your well-hidden treasures. And here, so I'll just read it in the Aramaic before we hear what Victoria Chana did with it and her collaboration. Bacha Rabbi Shimon vega'a, patach ve'amar, ayelet ahavim, ve'ya'alat chen dadeha, dadeha yiravucha, b'chol et be'ava tishke tamid. And I love that phrase there too, where it talks about it's really here. She puts it down here. Who of your lovers may suckle on you? That's really what it's talking about here. B'chol et be'avata tishke tamid, that you will be nurtured by her love forever. Oraita, oraita, Torah, Torah. Nehiru dechol almin, kama yamin unechalim umekorin umaboin mitpashte minach lechol sitrin minach kola. That means from her comes everything, not cola, an egg, Coca-Cola. Alach kaime ilain v'tatain nehiru ilav v'da minach nafka oraita ma'ema legabach ayelet ahavim ant v'ya'alat hen ela v'tata rechimin dilach man yizke leyanke minach kedeka yaot oraita shashuim demarech man yachil legala'a umemar sitrin Zin Bila Bacha Ve'air Rashe Ben Birkoi Ben Ashakli Afra. He wept and took his hand, let it drop between his knees, and he kissed the very earth, the dust of the earth. Okay, now this is what Victoria Chana, who is a dear friend of Melila and studies with Melila, has done with this. Okay. Sorry that I'm going to get rid of this ad as quick as I can. Skip ads. Okay. Are you seeing this, or do I need to do? No, you're not. Okay.
No, you need to get up. Yeah.
Okay, stop share, screen share this, and I will eventually get it to the full screen here, and that means I'm probably gonna have to swipe at the end. You'll cue me, Jane, and this will take us to our closing.